Hello and welcome to my channel. In today's video we're going to talk through drawing landscapes. I did a poll last week on my community tab and I was asking you what you would prefer drawing lessons in, and the top thing that came out was landscapes. So I thought we'd start with this one, and this is a photograph I took quite a while ago now, and it's just as you start to drop down towards Elterwater in the Langdales in the Lake District. So for those of you who know where I mean, before the cattle grid, looking over to the left, but as you can see there was a lot of cloud that day, but a nice summer day. So the main thing with drawing landscapes, because we're faced with such a vast area, it's actually quite difficult to decide what to leave out and what to put in, and we've got to think about what attracted us to that scene in the first place and what we're going to make the focus of our drawing and our painting. So I'm just going to draw this today in ink and just really talk through one or two things that I would observe and do with a landscape drawing. The first thing is what to leave out. We could spend hours and hours doing all this detail, and the thing about a camera is it really picks up all that detail. So it picks up much more detail than we will be processing when we were just stood there looking. We couldn't focus all the way across that scene. Our eyes will be focused more in the centre, and we wouldn't have this definition in these trees at the side here. So think about that as well. If you want to make it look as if it's what you're seeing, you might want to go out and sit there and just draw from life. And the thing is, because we are familiar with all these things, we're familiar with trees, we know that these trees in the middle distance, even though they might be a mile or more away, we know that they've all got leaves, we know they've got branches, and our mind fills in the blanks from our eyes. And so we make assumptions, and we sometimes draw what we can't see because we imagine those leaves and those shapes and put too much detail in, because if you're stood a mile away from something, you are not seeing that detail, and the temptation to draw that detail when you know what it is can make for a very busy looking drawing. So just concentrate on what you can actually see and not what your mind's filling in the blanks. So it's much different working from life than it is working from a photograph. Like I say, keep that in mind when you are working from your photographs, that the camera is taking in all that information and you may not want to include all that. So less detail at the background. So break it up into three areas. Your background, that may not show up much to the camera, but we've got some hills there in the fog, in the cloud, much further away. They could be a few miles away. Then we've got this middle ground, sort of from this fence here upwards, and then what we would call the foreground. Now, so if you break your landscapes down into those three areas and think about the amount of detail you're going to put in each one, not much detail at all in that far background because your eyes can't see all those miles away, you can only see outlines and things. A little bit more detail in the midground, and then much more detail in the foreground. So here we can see every individual stone. I'm not suggesting you might want to draw every individual stone, but you can see it. And then we've got the ferns and things down here, and you can see each leaf of these ferns. Whereas you're obviously not going to be able to see each leaf in these trees here or each stone in this wall here. So it's all about what to leave out and how much detail to put in, and also about the tones. So think about where your light source is. This is midsummer, and it's probably near to midday as well, actually, because if we look at the shadow under this tree, it's directly under the tree. We've got very little shadow here next to these trees, so obviously the sun is quite high and we've not got a lot of cast shadows there, being midday. So carefully think about these things before you start. Don't just set off drawing, think about it before you start, and also think about what you might want to move. You don't have to draw the landscape exactly as it appears in front of you. If there's a tree there that's making a stop on your picture, or that's right in the centre and that's making a very boring picture because you're not got a lot going on with your composition when you've got a tree that's right there, or a tree that's cutting off the edge of your picture. This one here, when you're doing a tree on the edge of a painting like this, you want it sort of either a little bit in or 2/3 of the way in. Don't have a trunk that's, you know, half and half, chopped in half there. That looks really bad. So think about your composition as well, and maybe moving a tree to the side, maybe taking a tree down altogether. You might want to move the wall, you might want to make the wall start further down to make this more open. There's all sorts of different things that you might want to do with your composition. This is actually quite a nice composition, the photograph to begin with, because we've got this line from these hills sort of coming down, and then your eye goes across to this area where it's nice and light here, and then back up here. So you've got sort of a bit of a zigzag going on, taking your eye through, and then this tree brings it round. So that's something you might want to think about as well. Bringing your eye down here, you might want to put more light coming down here, across to here, and when it comes back up to here, you see how it sort of curves over that branch. You might want to exaggerate that, you might want to bring that tree further out and make it more curved. So there are things that you may want to alter. Similarly with this tree, it's got another little tree behind it that's going this way, taking your eye out of the picture that way. You might want to bring that back round as well. So you might want that little tree there turning around and having its branches coming this way more. Okay, so those are all things to think about before you start. So I'm going to go ahead now, and what I'll do is I'll start by putting some pencil lines in. And like I said, this is quite a nice composition because we've got the land starting about a third of the way down the picture anyway, so it's broken up into thirds. So this tree is actually about a third of the way in. So if it wasn't, you could alter that. You could make it so that I would say that this tree is most of the focal point of the picture, and you know, you've got a third of the way up your picture there, and a third of the way across is that focal point. So that doesn't need moving at all, but make that nice and light with your colours and things. I'm not going to do any colours today, I'm just going to do a drawing. I'm thinking about not putting too much detail in these trees here, keeping that very sketchy. When you come to do your colour, these trees here are quite possibly the same colour as this one, but look at the amount of colour difference there. So carefully observe that and make these very, very light. This is much easier if you're doing this in watercolour. You can just, for these colours, you can use the same colours and just add more water to let them fade away and be a bit more hazy. Okay, so I'm going to go on now and draw this in. I'm actually going to do it in pen, so it could take me quite a while, and I'm just going to do it in a sketchbook on a nice cartridge paper, thick cartridge paper. So to begin with, because I'm working in pen, I will put some lines in of where that land goes. And again, don't overthink this. Make it nice and loose if you can. So that's the midground there, and then you've got the mountains in the background. And you can't see the top of them because of that cloud. And don't forget, mountains come towards you as well as away, you know, they've got a ridge coming here towards us. The ridges aren't always going to be there. They could be coming this way as well. So look carefully at that as well. Get the lay of the land. And then down here, we'll put that line going up. So get those main lines that we were talking about, that zigzag coming down to where that fence is. And then back up to that tree. And look at how far that tree goes up. So it goes up to about there somewhere. Just get the general feel about where that's going to go. So keeping it very sketchy. And this is what you want to do when you're out and about. Take your sketchbook out with you. Put that little wall in at the front there. I might not bring that all the way across because it forms a bit of a barrier. So these are things to think about. You don't want a big barrier. And then just block in that tree where it's going to be there. And then we can tighten the whole thing up with a pen as we go along. So I'll carry on now and draw this. Let me know if that was helpful to you, all those little bits of tips about drawing landscapes. The main thing is when you sit down in front of the landscape, think what it is that attracted you to that area. What is it that you want to make the main focus of your painting, and concentrate on that, and then don't do as much detail everywhere else. Don't put much detail near the edge of your painting or your canvas. And don't put too much detail in the background and the midground. Bring your focus into the foreground. So it might have been the light that attracted you to the subject, and in that case you might want to break it down, make it much more abstract, especially if you're sketching just in colour in your paints. You might want to block in some of these light colours and, like I say, break it down and make it much more abstract. Just one flick of the brush to put this nice bright yellow in here. And just look at the shapes and break it down. So here we've got sort of a triangle shape, you've got another triangle going down here. So it really, really depends on what you want out of it, what attracted you to that scene in the first place. So I'll stop wittering now and get on and do this drawing, and let me know what you think in the comments below. Let me know if you enjoy going out and about drawing landscapes, because really that is the way to learn more, is to actually go and sit in front of your subject. Okay, so thank you very much for watching, and I'll be back with you again soon. Bye for now.